Okay, I don't even know the manyth take this is anymore. I think it's probably about 200 at this point. Hello, I'm Lily. I'm going to be your instructor this semester, and I'm really terribly sorry that I can't be here today. I'll be back on Monday. In case you're wondering what class you're in right now, this is Color, Light, and Theory. Okay, so hello, here we are. Paul Helling here will be able to assist you, I'm sure, with any kind of permission codes that you might need. So everybody who's in here who's currently not enrolled, please, after I'm done with my virtual presentation here, get a permission code from Paul so that you can get that underway. On Monday, you're going to get your paper syllabus from me, but I would like to go over the materials that I want for you to have now. So because it probably would make sense that you get this stuff together during this week. So we're going to be working in gouache. Gouache is an opaque watercolor paint. It's very, very pure, very, very beautiful pigment, and it's ideal for what we're going to be doing here because it's not a shiny surface. It's very flat. It's almost velvet-like. So we're going to need to buy gouache. It's not terribly cheap, but the good news is that we don't need that many different colors, okay? We're basically going to be working with the printer's primaries, and that's CMYK. I'm sure you're familiar with that on the computer if you're working in any kind of applications such as Photoshop or Illustrator. You know there's RGB and then there's CMYK, and we're going to be dealing with CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, that's what that stands for. And essentially we could say, okay, cyan is blue, magenta is red, and yellow is yellow, right? So those would be our primary colors. But that's not quite how things are working here, because when we take a look at the cyan, the magenta, and the yellow, we'll find that they're extremely cool. They're almost unnatural kind of colors, and we're going to have to mix everything down. We're never going to work straight out of the tube. But because they're so pure, we can mix essentially any color with those tubes of paint. Okay, so we're going to start out with cyan. Notice that this is Winsor Newton paint. I would like you to get Winsor Newton. I don't believe there's another brand that actually produces those same colors, but also it's very, very high quality, so please stick with the Winsor Newton. So we're going to start out with the cyan, and then you're going to add magenta. Notice how this looks kind of like, almost like a red violet kind of pinkish sort of color. Doesn't look red, but that's what we want. Magenta. Please get magenta, and don't buy sets that are not primary colors, printer's primaries, because you're going to end up with a spectrum red, for example, and it doesn't work. It's not going to mix the same way that we want it to mix. So cyan, magenta, yellow. Make sure again this is primary yellow. It needs to be primary yellow. Primary yellow. And black. I don't really care what black. Mars black, ivory black, doesn't matter to me. So a black. And an enormous tube of white. Not that this is terribly enormous, but it's certainly bigger. So we're going to be using lots and lots of white throughout the semester. So get the big tube of that, and then you can also expect that you're going to need quite a bit of yellow. So you might actually have to buy 2 or 3 or 4 of these tubes of yellow. We're going to keep running out, I guarantee it. Lastly, under assist, this is Spectrum Violet. It's got the kind of the same purity as the other colors. It's something that you can add on if you want. It saves you a lot of trouble from trying to get a very pure violet to shade, let's say, a yellow. But it's not required. You can sort of not do this, but if you want, it's useful to have. So we've got our paint. in order to work with our paint, we're obviously going to need brushes. Okay, these are watercolor brushes, and my personal favorite are those Robert Simmons Sapphire. They're absolutely wonderful brushes. They've got a really perfect bounce. The flexibility is just terrific, and you can see that it's not floppy at all. You don't want a floppy brush. You want a brush that you can put a little bit of pressure on and it'll bounce back. This one is a different one. This is a Cotman, and it has an equal kind of bounce, but if you take a look at this, you can see that these bristles are a lot longer. So there's going to be more curving of the brush than this. Now this is angled and this is flat. It doesn't really make a huge difference if you want angled or flat. It might make a difference if you like the longer bristles or the shorter bristles. You can kind of think of this as a sort of a bow that you're going to play your violin with. Do you want it really flexible, or do you want it a little bit less flexible? They're both watercolor brushes. Okay, they're not oil painting brushes. Oil painting brushes are stiffer. So I would recommend the Sapphire, but it's really up to you what you're going to do. There was something else about these that I can't think of right now. Oh, the width. See how they're fairly narrow? They're 1/2-inch brushes. So you don't want anything bigger than a 1/2-inch brush, because what's going to happen with that is that you're going to hold a lot of paint in that. The more bristles you have, the wider of a brush you have, the more paint is going to be in there, and the more paint you're going to waste when you have to rinse your brush out. So I would really stick with a 1/2-inch brush. Don't do anything that's wider than that. It's not going to benefit you at all. Same is actually true for the longer bristles. The more sort of area you have for pigment to hang out in, the more pigment, the more paint you're gonna waste in the end. So I'm gonna get this out of here, and here are these gorgeous brushes. So we've got the Cotman and the Sapphire. In order to paint our swatches, we of course need a surface. And what I would like you to get there is a Bristol pad. So it's Bristol 11 by 14. Again, this is important. It's 11 by 14. Please get either the vellum surface. You can see right there, it says, whoops, it says right there, vellum, or the smooth surface. Stay away from textured paper. We do not want textured Bristol. Okay, no texture. Vellum or smooth surface, please. 11 by 14. You're also going to need a presentation portfolio that's 11 by 14 that you can eventually put all of these sheets into. They're black and they can have sleeves in them. That's what we're going to need to get. You can get, if you want, 11 by 14 tracing paper if you're trying to flap your work and keep it clean. It's not a must as long as you keep your pages totally pristine. Okay? So that's our surface. Gonna need a water bucket of sorts. Don't get a huge one, but you want a water bucket. And then of course we're gonna need a palette that we're gonna be working on. And you've got two different options. You can either go with palette paper that you buy. It's already cut in the right size and whatnot for you. Or you can save some money and get some wax paper at the grocery store or at Target or Walmart or wherever you go shopping. So either of those two options works equally well. You're going to need some paper towels, and you're also going to need a airtight container that whatever size your palette will be fits into. Ideally, I've used kind of like, it's like a brownie container that you could bake your brownies in, and then you put a plastic lid that snaps onto there. That's a perfect size, and it's shallow enough. So what you want is kind of a Tupperware or something like I just talked about that's shallow, where you can use the lid to put your palette paper in, and then use actually the bottom part of the container as your lid. Point is, you want it to seal, and you want it to be airtight because it keeps your paint wet. Don't want to really waste too much paint. So if you're not using your paint and you've got some left over, put the lid on and it'll stay good. The other thing that you're going to want is a small spray bottle with a really fine mist, so you could mist your paint as it's sitting on your palette so it doesn't dry up while you're working. So that will be good to have as well. Going to need a ruler. Make sure the ruler is at least an inch longer than your Bristol, so you want to have it be like 15 inches long. Make sure it's a metal ruler, not a plastic ruler, because you're going to be using it with an X-Acto knife. So you're going to be using it to cut along the edge of the ruler, and if it's plastic, you can just shave off the edge. It's remarkable how sharp these things are. So you want to make sure that you actually use a metal ruler with your X-Acto knife, which is, you have to get an X-Acto knife if you don't have one. Get the number 11 blades. That would be best. The other thing you're going to want is tape. This is low-tack artist tape. You could also use a removable Scotch tape. Either way, you need to be sure that your swatches can come off of there easily. If you use just a regular Scotch tape, you might take off actually half of the paper stays on the tape. So you want to make sure that it's removable, either artist tape or removable Scotch tape. And the reason why is you can see up here in the corner, hopefully, where I stick a little thing, what we actually do with that tape. So this should give you, what you're seeing up there should give you a little bit of an idea of what we're actually going to be doing in this class. So low-tack tape. The other thing that I have here is double-sided tape. That's kind of a good thing if you want to work with that instead of rubber cement to glue down your swatches. I would not recommend it as much as I would recommend rubber cement. You have probably not encountered the magic that is rubber cement. It is pure magic. Not just because it smells delicious. Always work in well ventilated areas with this, but also because of what it can do. And in order for this to work, you also need this. This is a rubber cement eraser. This is no good without this, okay? Rubber cement eraser and rubber cement. Make sure that the rubber cement is acid-free, okay? Acid-free. There's another kind that's also Best Test, but it comes in a yellow bottle, so get the orange one that's acid-free. And you also might, if you see here, when I open this up, you see that the brush here is really pretty big. So you might get a really cheap, kind of stiff, crappy brush. That's smaller than this, so you can apply less amounts of the rubber cement. So you're going to want the rubber cement and the kneaded eraser, the rubber cement eraser there. Lastly, and this is going to be the biggest problem, is this, and that's a punch. It's a square punch, and they're difficult to find. This is by a company called Paper Shapers. There are different brands out there if you can find them. This is, if you look at this, it's a 3/4 inch square, and that's what you want. We want a 3/4 inch square, or if need be, a 1/2 inch. The 1/2 inch ones get really kind of small, and they're not preferable. 3/4 inch is better, but do not go bigger than that, because literally what we're going to be doing is not going to fit on the page if you're going with like a 1 inch paper punch. Okay, so make sure that you get the 3/4 or 1/2 inch paper punch, square punch. Look online, search around. If you want, you could try Joann's Fabric or Michael's maybe, but call them. Don't just do a whole bunch of running around to try and find this, because you might be wasting a lot of time. Okay, so call around for that. So very important. You absolutely have to have this. You cannot do this without this. There are people who have attempted to do the entire class by using the X-Acto knife and cutting out squares. It doesn't work. It's going to take you forever, and it's not going to be exactly even, and your whole thing is not going to look good. Okay, so punch, very important. Did I show you my pencil? Get a pencil, a hard pencil, either an H or harder, H, 2H, 4H, anything that's harder than an H, okay? Important. What else? If you have any questions before I see you on Monday, please send me an email. You'll see the email up there as well, or here, or wherever it may be. You're going to see the email. It's lglass2@palomar.edu. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions that you may have, and I really look forward to meeting you. All right. That's it. Really. Done.